Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in this video I want to go over what exactly you should be doing in patch 8.3, and what are the different rewards for all the different things you can be doing. So let's start off with reputations. Reputations are pretty annoying to grind this patch. To get full efficiency for the Rajani or the Ultima Chord, you need to be doing like the 6 little objectives that are up as you fly around the map. Each day, those give quite a bit of rep. In addition to the weekly assaults and the bi-weekly assaults and daily quests as well. So if you actually look at the breakdown, about half of your rep income, or a little bit less, will come from those weekly or bi-weekly assaults, and the rest is actually going to come from those daily objectives and daily quests, which are quite annoying. Luckily, not too much is gated behind Exalted for these factions, so Rajani gates the tank and healer essence, as well as an infinite augment rune, which is really nice because A, it's a little bit more powerful than the regular augment rune, and B, you don't have to spend any more money on augment runes forever once you invest in this thing. So it's going to be a nice quality of life thing to pick this up on raiding characters, but for many characters, they're not going to be too interested in either the cheat death or the like Spirit of Preservation healer essence. Either of those effects may not be something you're interested in at all, and if you're a pure DPS spec, there's really not too much to get from the Rajani. The Ultima Chord, however, gates rank 3 Breath of the Dying. Breath of the Dying is a very powerful essence, especially at rank 3 as a minor for many DPS specs on single target. So you may be interested in speeding this up to a 4 or 5 week grind instead of a 7 or 8 week grind, which is what you add by doing more of the daily annoying stuff rather than just the weekly and bi-weekly stuff. It's worth noting that once people start reaching Revered with either of these reputations, you'll be able to purchase contracts from the auction house that will allow you to get rep for every world quest you do. That might be something you're interested in. If you're interested in any of these rewards, just be aware that those first couple days after people reach Revered, the price will be fairly high until more scribes make it to Revered and bring the price down. All right, Horrific Visions are something that the reward structure has been kind of unclear with. I made an earlier video that kind of tries to dispel a lot of the uncertainty about Horrific Visions. One of the things you can be doing that a lot of people are doing is a Coalescing Visions grind, but the real reward for that is you'll get a couple more runs, so that'll get you more mementos and stuff, but the main reward for that is just a 1 week earlier on your rank 13 or rank 15 cloak, or covering a couple mistakes that you made. But even if you made a couple mistakes, it'll probably bring your rank 15 cloak 2 weeks earlier and not affect any of your other ranks of your cloak. So this is a fairly inefficient way to spend your time, especially now that Heroic and Mythic have opened up and Mythic Plus has opened up. So I would recommend not spending your time grinding Coalescing Visions. Do your daily Lesser Vision. That's a lot of Coalescing Visions per minute, but every other source of Coalescing Visions per minute is very inefficient, besides the weekly and bi-weekly stuff too. So I'd advise not spending too much time on that. Again, check out my earlier video if you're interested in learning more about that. However, progressing through the Horrific Visions themselves, doing full clears and unlocking masks, and then doing more full clears with those masks and unlocking more masks, will upgrade your item level reward from the end of the Horrific Vision, as well as your Corrupted Memento reward, which is the progression path towards adding sockets to your items. So if you're interested in being that person who gets 13 sockets on their gear first, you're going to want to be full clearing as much as you can, getting as far into that mask progression as possible, as quickly as possible, to get as many mementos as possible. That's a really fun thing to do. It's a really fun way to progress, and the good news is that once you're past rank 5 on your cloak, there's not too much of a penalty for partial success in a Horrific Vision. If you clear halfway and then something bad happens, instead of being out a full cloak upgrade, you'll be out half your mementos, and that's a lot less punishing. So the Horrific Vision grind really was only punishing during week 1 when those mistakes were fully costly of your cloak levels, and after that, it's now fairly forgiving for mistakes. Artifact power is something that you'll have seen a lot of world first raiders grinding for in the first week of the patch, and probably not so much afterwards. The reason for that is that this is one of the only grinds that was available on week 1, but there's actually not too much important gated behind here. So a minor essence at neck level 75 is very strong, an extra minor is very strong, but neck level 75 is fairly free. You only need a little bit of AP to get to 75. You'll get there naturally with just passive AP, probably this week for most people that are playing the game, if not next week. Neck levels 78 to 80 gate the Mythic Azurite increase in item level there, and that's a fairly large amount of power level. And neck level 80 itself gates 3% stamina, which is potentially useful as well. Every neck level after that, and including that, will give you 2 item levels on your necklace, so that's a little bit of stats, and it will scale up your essences, the number of damage and stuff that all your essences do. But these are pretty minor effects, so once you've made it to neck level 80, these are not going to do too much. So I wouldn't worry about grinding artifact power beyond there. Again, fairly inefficient thing to do. Getting up to 80, mostly for the 5 item levels on the Mythic Azurite, more than the 3% stamina, although the 3% stamina is nice, will be worthwhile if you're trying to kill N'Zoth at any point before you have neck level 80. You know, it'll be worth it to grind up to neck level 80 for that. Mythic Plus is opened up here in Heroic Week, but the item level is capped currently at 445 from a +6. Anything higher than a +6 will not reward any more items or any better items. So until you get to level 16, you don't start earning extra items. So there's really no reason to do any Mythic Plus level between 6 or higher than 6 this week, except for one weekly key, which will set you up to get a big corrupted item, a 475 corrupted item out of your box next week. Weekly chest items this patch are guaranteed corrupted and will not be cloaks ever. Whereas end of dungeon run items are not guaranteed to be corrupted and can be cloaks, so they're a lot more likely that you're going to get just residuum or stuff to scrap out of that box. But at least the weekly chest will never do that to you, so that's nice. Now you're wondering which dungeons to farm. Mechagon during Heroic Week looks like a really good place to spend your time because there are these rings there that can form a powerful 2-set bonus, and a set of those at 445, especially with sockets, will likely outclass raid rings even up at higher item levels because the effects are pretty powerful on these Mechagon 2-set rings. So what that means is if you have Mechagon M+, that, you know, on your characters, you can probably run it, or you'll probably even be able to find players from top guilds that are looking for Mechagon +6 keys to carry. Like, they want to carry your key to get a chance at these rings. So if any of your alts, for instance, have Mechagon keys, you can probably get those carried by a pretty good group this week. And going forward, in the higher level keys, Mechagon will still be a good key for the rewards. But starting in Mythic Week, there will be better stuff to do, namely Mythic progression. So you'll probably find a lot less groups farming the Mythic Plus. Although, Mythic Plus farm is fairly lucrative. It's better rewards than most of Heroic. It's item level 465, which is 5 item levels better than most Heroic bosses, and 5 item levels worse than the last 2 bosses on Heroic. And those can corrupt. So that is a powerful incentive, but it only opens up next week when Mythic opens, and of course then many raiders' time gets more valuable. There is also a new Warfront added here, Heroic Darkshore. That's going to give a 460 item, which can corrupt the first time you do it, so probably worthwhile. Also quite a bit of artifact power locked behind that too, so a good use of your time whenever it pops up, although very mind-numbing, of course. The raid is opening up this week, normal and heroic difficulties. 445 and 460 are the rewards from those, with 10 item level bump on the last 2 bosses. And Mythic Nihilotha will open up next week, along with the first wing of Raid Finder. For 475 loot from Mythic, Raid Finder loot's down at 430, with 440 from the last 2 bosses, but the last 2 bosses won't be available on Raid Finder for quite a while. This is, of course, very high item level rewards. These are the highest item level rewards in the game. Mythic Nihilotha, the last 2 bosses. And the regular Mythic Nihilotha bosses, 475, is competitive with... It is better than everything except for weekly chest items, which it can be on par with for the very highest levels of PvP and Mythic Plus. Speaking of PvP, this week, in Heroic Week, PvP item level is also capped at 445 from 1600 or higher, we think. These are estimated rankings based on what they've done the past few patches. There's a chance that these numbers will slightly change. But my understanding is that 445 items, which can corrupt, will drop out of 1600 or higher matches this week. If you can get up to 2400, they'll scale all the way up to 465 with, 5 item level steps along the way. So that's a nice little incentive to go higher if you can. Of course, 2400, especially in these early weeks, is no mean feat. As far as the weekly chest goes, the big breakpoints are 1600, where you start getting Heroic Azurite, and 2100, where you start getting Mythic Azurite. If you push up from 2100 to 2400, you're only increasing the item level of non-Azurite corrupted items from 470 to 475. So the big breakpoint, especially for Mythic Raiders, if you're aiming at PvP, is 2100, or at least getting to 1600 and trying to get some Heroic Azurite out of it is probably worth your time. This is a fairly easy bar to clear. In the first couple of weeks of the patch, this is a fairly hard bar to clear. Even if you're a pretty good PvPer, 2100 is fairly competitive this early in the patch cycle. All right, let's talk about Residuum. Your weekly box will not contain Residuum that you open this week, but starting next week, it will contain Residuum. A 10 will give you 1700, a 15 will give you 2150, and a 20 will give you 2600. Of course, 20, very high number that is unlikely to be reached by many players for many months. So, although I would expect these to start getting cleared in a couple weeks, 20s. You can also get Residuum from scrapping items. However, they do have to be from this season, so you can't scrap your old Eternal Palace stuff for Residuum, and that will reward these amounts. And then the costs to buy things, a 460 is going to cost 900 residuum, which you'll note is a little bit more than half of a plus 10. So if you do like a plus 11 or a plus 12, you could buy two 460s. A 475 costs 4750, so notably the math behind this is you need to do an 18 and then a 17 to get a 475 from the weekly box residuum alone. Or you can do a little bit lower than that and make up the difference by scrapping some items. That works too. But if you're interested in getting a 475 in 2 weeks' time rather than 3 weeks' time, 18 and 17 are the numbers you're aiming for your weekly box there. 475 randoms are the most efficient way to get Azurite. This is where most serious raiders are going to be spending their residuum. They will not be spending them on random 460s, and they will not be pooling up for a specific 475 because 20,000 is a very high number of residuum that's not realistically attainable before progression is over or until the very end of progression for most serious raiders. So this item, as fun as it would be, really needs its cost to be reduced by 40% before people would even start considering taking it at a serious level. However, if you really don't like the experience of rolling a bad Azurite piece, save up for your 475. That's your right. But the main power level option here is this random 475. So again, an 18 and a 17 if you're interested in picking that up. Anyways, those are the rewards here from 8.3. If you're interested in this little spreadsheet, it'll be in a guide that's linked. Like there will be a spreadsheet linked in the description here that includes horrific vision information, and one of the spreadsheets on that document will also be containing all this information. You can find out more, especially about the little steps between 6 and 15, and the steps between 1600 and 2400 in some Wowhead guides that I'll try to link as well in that description. So do check those out if you want to learn more specifics about exactly how all this works. And remember to check out my horrific visions guides if you're interested in potentially getting the socket or the rank 15 cloak or the Admiral 470 stuff a little bit before everybody else. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Ratnos. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next one.